It happened on June 30th, 1961, in Hyde Park, Los Angeles. The air was heavy with heat, the kind that made the asphalt shimmer and the air smell faintly of dust and fruit. 8-year-old Crystal Marin was outside in the backyard of her family's small house on Brynhurst Avenue. She was barefoot, wearing a yellow dress with a torn hem, the same one she always wore when she played outside. Around 2 in the afternoon, she climbed the neighbor's peach tree, the one that leaned slightly over the Marins' fence. She did it often, balancing barefoot on the lowest branch, humming to herself while she picked fruit for her mother's pie. Her 3 brothers, all younger, had grown bored and went inside to grab lemonade. They were gone less than 10 minutes. When they came back, Crystal wasn't there. The basket she'd been filling sat in the grass, half full. One peach had rolled away, stopping at the edge of the fence. Its skin split open in the sun. At first, they thought she was hiding, playing a game. But after calling her name again and again, the laughter they expected never came. Their mother ran outside, scanning the yard, then the neighbors, then the alley behind the fence. Nothing. No sound, no movement. She called the police just before 3 p.m., her voice trembling so badly the dispatcher asked her to repeat herself twice. Within an hour, 2 patrol cars pulled up in front of the house. Officers spread out through the block, knocking on doors, asking if anyone had seen a girl in a yellow dress. Most hadn't even realized something had happened. Hyde Park wasn't the kind of neighborhood where kids just vanished. By late afternoon, more officers arrived. They searched the yard, the alleys, and the empty lots nearby. They opened trash bins, checked under porches, and lifted the lids of rain barrels. A few brought in dogs, letting them sniff the basket and the peaches. The dogs followed the scent only as far as the back fence before circling, confused. Beyond that point, the trail vanished. The grass was unbroken. No footprints, no drag marks, no tire tracks. It was as if she had simply evaporated. As the sun went down, volunteers joined the search. Neighbors, church members, even strangers who'd heard about the missing girl on the radio. They combed the streets with flashlights, calling her name through the growing dark. Children were ushered indoors. Mothers locked their doors early. The air hung still, every sound sharp. Barking dogs, distant cars, the echo of footsteps along the sidewalk. When midnight came, the officers told the Marins they would resume at first light. Her mother didn't sleep that night. She sat on the porch, watching the yard, waiting for any sign of her daughter. The next morning, newspapers printed her school photo under the headline, 8-year-old girl missing in South L.A. The photo showed Crystal smiling with her front tooth missing, a blue ribbon in her hair. Reporters came to the street, snapping photos of the peach tree, of her mother crying on the porch. The police organized a grid search covering several miles, checking storm drains, bus stops, and abandoned buildings. They found nothing. Rumors spread. A strange car seen near the corner, a man asking children for directions, a shadow by the fence. But none of it led anywhere. Days became weeks. The police presence faded. Leads dried up. Every night, her mother placed a bowl of peaches by the window, whispering prayers that her daughter would find her way home. By the end of summer, the posters on telephone poles were sun-bleached and peeling. The neighborhood went back to its routines, but for the Marins, time stopped on that day in June. The laughter that once filled their backyard was gone. In its place remained only silence, and the unanswered question of how a child could vanish, without a trace, on a quiet afternoon in her own neighborhood. 23 years had passed since the day Crystal Marin vanished, and the house on Brynhurst Avenue had become a monument to grief. The paint peeled, the windows clouded, and yet the Marin family never left. Moving would have felt like surrender. Inside, every room still carried her shadow. Her small shoes were still in the closet, the yellow dress folded in a drawer. Her mother dusted them once a month, talking softly to no one. The peach tree behind the fence was long gone. Lightning struck it in the late 70s, but the patch of ground where it once stood never grew grass again. No one mowed it, no one stepped on it. It remained bare, as if the earth itself remembered. The neighborhood around them changed. The people who had searched with flashlights that summer night moved away. New families came in. Children rode bikes up and down the same street where Crystal had played, but everyone still knew the story. The old-timers would lower their voices when they spoke of her. "That's the house," they'd say quietly, pointing from the sidewalk. For the Marions, every June brought the same ritual. Her mother, Lillian, placing a bowl of peaches on the window ledge, fresh from the market, never once forgetting the date. Her father, Howard, kept the porch light burning each night until he passed in 1978. He died sitting in his chair, newspaper folded beside him, waiting for a phone call that never came. After his death, Lillian lived alone in the house. The police still called from time to time when an unidentified body turned up in another county, just to ask for dental records or to confirm an old file. Each time it ended the same way. Not her, not Crystal. Lillian stopped answering by the third year. She'd simply hang up before the words reached her ears. In 1984, a new detective named Ruiz was assigned to review cold cases from the old Hyde Park files. Crystal's name surfaced again, buried under decades of dust. Ruiz was young, driven, convinced he could solve what his predecessors could not. He found a tip buried in the 1961 notes. An anonymous caller claiming to have seen a man digging behind a garage across the street the night Crystal disappeared. No one had followed up back then. The house belonged to an elderly couple who have since died. Ruiz requested an excavation. The morning the police returned to Brynhurst Avenue, the block filled with quiet curiosity. Neighbors stood on porches as investigators unrolled tape and brought in shovels. Lillian watched from her window, hands trembling. She'd seen it all before. The sudden interest, the promises, the same cold disappointment that always followed. Still, she prayed. For discovery, for closure, for anything other than silence. By noon, the crew uncovered bones, small, white fragments that stopped everyone in their tracks. News spread fast. Reporters swarmed the street before sunset, cameras flashing, hoping to capture the moment the mystery ended. But when the coroner arrived, the truth came out fast and merciless. The bones weren't human. They belonged to dogs, maybe two, long dead and buried deep. The crowd dispersed. The detectives packed up their tools. The hope that had flared in Lillian's chest burned out again, colder this time. A week later, the case was formally labeled unresolved. The files were boxed, tagged, and moved back into storage. The report read like a summary of every failed search before it. No physical evidence, no viable leads. For the police, the story was finished. But for Lillian Marin, it would never be over. Every night she still sat on the porch, staring at the patch of bare earth where the tree once stood, waiting for something, a sound, a figure, a sign. To her, time had stopped on June 30th, 1961. The neighbors learned to stop asking questions. Children who grew up on that street heard whispers about the missing girl who vanished without a trace. Some said her spirit still lingered near the fence. Others avoided walking past the house after dark. But for Lillian, there were no ghosts, just a daughter she refused to bury without proof. And so, the house remained the same, year after year. The porch light stayed on, the peaches returned to the window each summer, and silence filled the space where laughter used to live. For the Marins, the world had moved forward, but their lives had not. Everything ended the day Crystal disappeared, and nothing that came after could change it. In March 2023, a small hospital in Reno, Nevada, filed a report about an elderly woman admitted after a minor traffic accident on the outskirts of town. She had no driver's license, no credit cards, nothing but a faded photograph of a little girl holding a basket of peaches. When the nurse asked her name, she hesitated before whispering, "Crystal Marin." The name triggered an alert in the system, a cold case flag from Los Angeles County missing since 1961. At first, no one believed it. The woman was frail, confused, and couldn't remember her date of birth. She spoke softly, her voice trembling whenever anyone asked about her past. Still, the detective sent a DNA sample to California, matching it against the file stored from the old investigation, one that had been reopened countless times over the decades. The results came back positive. After 62 years, the missing girl from Hyde Park was alive. When detectives questioned her, Crystal could only recall fragments. She remembered a field that stretched forever, a white house with blue shutters, and a man's voice calling her Anna. She said she had worked cleaning motels, picking fruit, and moving from town to town, never staying long enough for anyone to ask questions. She didn't know how she got to Nevada, or even when she left California. It was as if her life had been lived in pieces, shuffled out of order. The news broke quietly at first, just a short article buried in the local paper. But within days, Los Angeles stations picked up the story. Missing girl found alive after 6 decades. Reporters camped outside the hospital, and the detectives handling her case had to move her to a rehabilitation center for privacy. She didn't ask for attention. She just wanted to go home, though home no longer existed. When officials traced her family, only 2 of her brothers were still alive. Both were in their 70s, living miles apart, carrying the ghost of their sister for most of their lives. They met her in a quiet room at the rehab center. The reunion was brief, full of tears, long silences, and the kind of disbelief that doesn't fade easily. Her brother Lionel later said it felt like talking to a dream. A few weeks later, Crystal returned to Los Angeles for the first time in over half a century. The neighborhood was unrecognizable. New streets, new houses, nothing that resembled the world she'd left. Her family's old home on Brynhurst Avenue had been torn down years earlier, replaced by an apartment complex. But in the small, grassy courtyard behind it, she found the exact patch of ground where the peach tree once stood. It was still bare, the grass refusing to grow there. She knelt beside it and stayed quiet for a long time. When a neighbor approached, unsure who she was, Crystal smiled faintly and said, "I thought nobody remembered." The woman answered softly, "Everyone remembers you." That night, people from the neighborhood gathered, some bringing candles, others peaches from the market. A simple tribute to the girl who had disappeared on a summer afternoon and somehow come back as an old woman. There were no explanations, no answers, only the proof that she had survived. After 62 years, Crystal Marin had come home, not to the house she lost, but to the street that never forgot her.